Oh man, should we just get right in, just us three? Because actually, you guys might be able to answer this. It's like I'm sure it's like recording, right? It's recording the channel. People are gonna be able to watch this later. There we go. What's up, 80s kid? Rank the Jurassic Park movies. Oh my goodness. That's uh that's hard, but I definitely can do it. I definitely can do it. Okay, so obviously, over here, there we go. Over here, it's easily number one for me. Super easy. Um, I've heard about StreamYard. I know Kenny talked about StreamYard. I'm gonna probably do a little bit of research on different platforms, different streaming things to see because I'd love to get some logos in and stuff. If I start doing this more often and I start bringing in people, I know I've talked to Kenny a little bit about doing maybe like a group stream or getting a few people in here to talk movies. Um, and so yeah, I mean, I'd like to check out a couple of those things. Okay. What did you think? I've heard mixed. I talked to a coworker today that enjoyed Strangers. What did you think, Marley, of Strangers? And then I'll get into Jurassic Park and Star Wars. Um, while while Marley types what he thought about Strangers, I'll just say I think Jurassic Park 1 easily the best, and I think I Jurassic Park 1's the best. We'll get into Strangers in a second. So Jurassic Park 1, then I would say, I know it's a bit of a hot take, but I would say Jurassic Park 3, then I would say 2, then I would say World, then Fallen Kingdom, or maybe not. Oh man, this one's hard. The last two are pretty even for me. I enjoyed World a lot more than a lot of people. The Strangers is not good. I've heard that from almost everybody, and I heard of one dude today. I have a buddy at work who's just a huge horror fan. He loves most horror, and he was like, "It was fun." And so I was like, "I don't know about how fun it's going to be." Oh my goodness, my wife in the chat embarrassing me. Uh, um, I Yeah, I mean, I have heard terrible things about Strangers. I'm not a horror guy, honestly. Like, I've been thinking I need to get somebody like a partner channel that loves horror that I can kind of plug and stuff every once in a while because I don't see horror films in theaters. Okay, Marley, I agree with that. I think Fallen Kingdom is a bit underrated. I think the new movies are underrated in general. Like, I'm a diehard Jurassic Park fan, so I can accept that they're not great. Fully accept that the new Jurassic Park films aren't great, but I don't think they're like terrible. Like I think that they're still fun, and I think World and Fallen Kingdom were fun. Um, and so teach their own. But I'm definitely a diehard, and I can accept that I like the Jurassic Park world way better. See, I like JP3 a lot. I like it a lot more than most, Kenny. I like JP3. A lot of people would say 2 is better than 3, and I would not. I disagree with that. Probably because I love Alan Grant. Like I just love Grant so much. Um, and so how can you? Yeah, that's right. I love the gymnastics thing. I like Alan Grant more than I like Ian Malcolm, which is a bit of a hot take, I think, in the Jurassic Park world. Like Ian Malcolm's like kind of the sweetheart. Everybody loves Ian Malcolm. Um, I like Alan Grant a bit better. 80s kid, favorite Star Wars film. I'm a late 80s kid, and so I think that I really am partial to Empire. And I know that it's like kind of stereotypical, but you know, yeah, I know it's stereotypical, but I like Empire. That's probably my favorite Star Wars film. Um, but I will say, I think of the new stuff. Trying to think what I would like about a lot of the. I like all Star Wars stuff to be honest. Like I think the newest trilogy is it's grown worse as I've gotten further away from it. And so I just think that That's been kind of a bummer, like, as I've gotten further away from the Star Wars stuff. Rogue One, I think Rogue One is legit. I'm thinking about shows too, though. Like, I'm thinking about the shows that they've done. Mandalorian is just so solid. I think Mandalorian season 1 is just so fun. Um, you know, 80s kid, I hear Phantom Menace, I know it gets so much flack, but there's just so many 90s kids, I think, and early 2000s kids that love those movies, like, deeply. Um, oh, Andor is not your Star Wars. I liked Andor a lot. I thought it was pretty good, but, it was different. It was different. I think it took a little while to get going. Um Hey, thanks, Marley, for subbing. Super grateful for that. Uh, I have watched Tales of the Empire, Kenny. I thought it was legit. I need to go back and watch it again. Um, but I really, really enjoyed Tales. I also liked it, and I'm blanking a little bit. I really liked the anime stuff that they did. Like, not all of them were great, but I thought it was interesting. Um, what's up, Sammy? Thanks for joining us. Got the Discord crew in here. Super thankful for you guys just coming and hanging out for a little bit. Um, Star Wars Visions, that's it. Kenny, you got it. So I thought that was awesome. Just because being a writer director, I loved that they just gave free range to people to just go after it, like to really explore something creatively. And I don't think all of them worked great, but I appreciated the art and the creativity involved. And so I really was impressed overall with that series. Oh man, Strangers. I don't know if I'll ever see I don't know if I'll ever see Strangers. Yeah, this is like the Film Threads crew. This is great. I mean, Film Threads has been great. I have really loved kind of growing a little bit there in a community. The Last Jedi. I mean, it's a growing take. It was a hot take for a while. A lot of people were really mad about that, Last Jedi. Honestly, I think with Last Jedi, like I I think that if they had removed I think they did 2 things in that movie that were big mistakes, and overall, I actually really loved the movie. The first mistake was creating a bit of a relationship love thing between Rose, and Finn, am I right? I'm even blanking on his name. Um, and that just didn't work for me. It just didn't. And then I think the other thing that worked is or that didn't work because of that relationship was that whole casino scene. Like it just in terms of a narrative structure and what they did in that film when they went to the casino, like there it just none of it mattered. And that's the thing. When you're making a film, everything has to matter. And so much of that sequence didn't matter. And so that was my biggest problem with that. I'm gonna plug in really quick, guys, so I don't run out of battery over here. Um, but I mean, it just exactly, Kenny, you got it right. Zero impact on the story in terms of what it did for the story, it did nothing. And then I thought when they got, like, to the destroyer and they were doing that whole thing, it just didn't work well, because it just was like, "Oh, yeah, betrayed," and it just didn't make sense in the story overall. It feels long. It feels long, Marley. But I know Luke got a ton of flack, um, for like how he was portrayed and his character, but I liked it. I liked Luke in the film. I thought he was good. I thought they were doing something really interesting with him, and I didn't hate it as much as a lot of people did. And I thought that forced projection scene was sick. I mean, I people got all weird about that, but I thought it was amazing. Um I'm intrigued by Acolyte. I haven't even watched the trailer yet. I've just seen some images, and I try not to watch a lot of trailers nowadays, mostly because I don't want things getting ruined. Um, and so it's just, yeah, I mean, I'm interested in Acolyte. I'll watch it. I watch everything Star Wars. Like, I'll watch it once, and then the truth is, like, how much do I like it? Because then I'll definitely go back and rewatch it if I love it. See, exactly. Kenny just says spoiled it, right? Like I hate it when I watch trailers and they spoil things. Like a great example of them not doing this that I love about this summer, a movie coming out this summer. I don't know if you guys have heard of this new film, Kinds of Kindness by Yorgos Lanthimos that just did oh man, why am I blanking out on the Poor Things? Um, and so you watch that trailer, Kinds of Kindness, and you're like, what is this movie? Like, what is actually happening here? And that is what trailers are supposed to be. Like that is what trailers are supposed to do. Trailers are supposed to like intrigue us and be like, I have to see this movie because I have no idea what in the world is going to happen. And that Kinds of Kindness trailer is perfect for that. See, I haven't watched that's the thing, I have not watched the Deadpool and Wolverine trailer, specifically because I don't want it spoiled. Like, if there's movies that I'm really looking forward to, I will not watch the trailer most of the time, and even when I go into theaters, I'll time it so that I'm getting into the movie right when, the, like, Regal or AMC ad is popping up, and I miss most of the trailers because I just am tired of getting spoiled and it messing with my emotions in terms of expectations. And so I stay away from it. Thoughts on Rings of Power? I haven't watched the Rings of Power trailer, guys. I've been so busy. So just a little bit into my real world life. So I'm a filmmaker and I'm currently a creative lead on a feature animated film that my work is producing. And so that is just like in a good way, it's like eating my lunch. It's taking up so much of my time. And so I don't have a lot of time to catch up with a lot of these trailers, and so I'm not caught up. But hey, thanks, Kenny, so much for that. It's my first time. Welcome, welcome to anybody new. Landon, what's up? Oh, Landon. Landon's a buddy of mine from work. Landon, I haven't watched The Rings of Power, so I haven't checked it out yet. Now, the true question is like, how did you guys feel about Rings of Power season one? Because I'm a diehard Lord of the Rings fan, but I have a bit of an interesting take on fandom. I think sometimes fans get just way too crazy about their franchises. Like I'm kind of fine if stuff gets made sometimes in a fan franchise, high fan franchise. I'm okay if they make stuff and it's not great. It's like I just won't watch it again. It's like I'll watch it once and move on. So, ooh, that's a good question, Kenny. Uh just for the comments. Oh yes. I mean, that's the thing, right? The comment section of Lord of the Rings, that's just one of those things that as soon as you go into the comments, it's a dumpster fire immediately. Like it doesn't matter what it's doing. It doesn't matter if the trailer's good, bad, whatever. The comments are going to be outrageous because there's so many like toxic fans out there. Um you watched it for the first time this year? I'm so interested what your take is, Kenny, on Lord of the Rings. If you just watched it, did you watch the extended or did you watch the extended version or did you watch the theatrical version? We're waiting. It's like the delay. I haven't seen it yet. You guys may have seen it, so um, I gotta figure out this autofocus thing with my camera because it's definitely going in and out of focus right now. Whoop, whoop. There we go. Get it all nice and in focus. Um, Extended versions, yes. Okay. Loved most of it. That's understandable. Like, I don't think it's one of those things where I think if you watch it, you automatically love it. Um, that series though, like, didn't love Two Towers. Okay. I mean, that's pretty hot take. Because I think most people, I don't know. I think most people love Two Towers most, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm weird. I love Fellowship the most. That's my favorite movie still. My favorite movie in the Lord of the Rings trilogy is Fellowship. I love it. I mean, Return of the King was awesome. I get it. It's so incredible. But I think that because I grew up such a huge Lord of the Rings fan, and I read the books a lot growing up, and so when that movie came out, Fellowship, like, it just changed me, you guys. Like, it changed who I was when I saw Fellowship in theaters. Like, such an incredible, incredible experience where it was like, it is possible. Like, it's possible to turn, like, a book that is so beloved into just something so wonderful and perfect. And so I absolutely loved Fellowship. I do think Helm's Deep is probably the best battle. I know some people would argue, um, that the Return of the King battle is bigger, but and the Rohirrim is legit though. Like, let's just be honest, how legit that Rohirrim moment is, like when they charge in, like that's just so awesome. Um I honestly think, it's funny, Kenny, I'm going back to your question about what movie was spoiled for me. Um I honestly think the last thing that comes to mind, maybe it's because I just saw If, but I I think that the last movie that really was spoiled for me because of a trailer was Quiet Place, which is a while ago, but I remember seeing the trailer and it kinda spoiled it. I would have loved to go into that movie blind, which is kind of a pun, right? Because the aliens are blind. But I would have loved to because I just think the concept was cool, and I was just bummed that they exposed so much of the plot in that deal. Um, let's see. It's been a while since I've watched Two Towers, the extended edition, and so I know it well. But I mean, I think that the film is so grand. Like Lord of the Rings, it's so huge and it just spans so much that like I do think like there are moments that are a bit slow in the movies, but I love it. It's like there are times when you love something slow and you hate something slow. It's like, but hey, thanks Sammy for coming by. Really appreciate you. Um, we'll see you on Threads. Thanks for stopping by, man. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just interesting. It's interesting hearing Kenny like a new perspective of somebody who has just freshly experienced Lord of the Rings because I've watched it like every year for the past, since it came out, decade, or more. And so, or I mean, it's 20 years old, which makes me feel so dang old. But I love those movies. Fellowship of the Ring was the first movie I saw. Like, I think I saw Fellowship of the Ring 3 or 4 times in theaters. I saw it a lot, and I loved it. Loved every minute. Um, but we've been talking for a bit about stuff, taking questions, but one of the things I wanted to talk about is this whole deal with like the Fall Guy coming straight to video on demand. I know it's kind of been all over Threads. Um, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about like the state of the industry because I am already on the side of that it's pretty bad for the industry, and I've been talking a lot about this for a long time. Um, and I think that there's several reasons it's bad, and I don't think they're really like I don't think that they're obscure. I think a lot of people know why it's bad. Um, and ultimately, the first reason why I think it's bad is because just I think that theaters. Did you not know about this, Kenny? This is like all over, dude. It's all over the news, all over film news for sure. I think it's already available right now. Like, I think you can go right now on video on demand and buy it. Now, this was commonplace during the pandemic, right? Okay, yeah. That's why I wanna do this because like, it's kind of crazy because they were doing this obviously during pandemic season, right? And that kinda made sense because 'cause they're trying to just recoup something, right? Scoob was one of those, right? A good example that comes to mind of a film that was supposed to come out, pandemic hits, they're trying to figure out how do we just make some money, and so they release it early to video on demand, and then they ended up rolling it out to streaming. I think it hit, like, Max, and so The Fall Guy, like, this movie's so good. Like, it's not perfect, but it's a great summer blockbuster. I was looking up numbers. I'm actually gonna pull them up right now. Like, some of the numbers on this are crazy. Like, so far, let me look it up. I got it right here. So, Fall Guy made has made $63 million right now in 2 weeks. I know that they're saying this is underperforming, but that's still really decent for 2 weeks. That's a really decent output for 2 weeks, and so it seems so weird to me that they would push it out to video on demand, and it's like they've have their algorithms that tell them whether their films are gonna be successful or not, but the bottom line is, like, people didn't go to the theater at the same rate that they thought people were gonna go to the theater. I mean, it that's what they are saying, Kenny, right? It's like, so 63 million is low because the budget on the film, like the budget on let's see. The budget on The Fall Guy, let's see what the budget was. I can check it right now. I got it pulled up. I got Box Office Mojo here pulled up. And so um let's see what the budget was. Where is it? Why can't I find it right now? I think the budget though was like 120, maybe 150. I'm not sure. I can't find it right off the bat right now for some reason. Um, but I loved Fall Guy. I just thought it was so fun. And yes, I mean, 80s kid, like I agree. Like I just think so. Here's the deal. This is kind of the state of the industry, right? Pandemic hits and radically changes the industry. And it was already in flux already. Like the industry was already shifting over to the streaming wars. It was already shifting over towards like just creating originals. Like you want to draw people into your streaming service. Like that's the key, right? All these streaming services, they are fighting over every single piece of content. They have massive inflated internal budgets for new content and they're buying up as much as they can because they want to draw in as many new audiences as possible to their streaming platform. Um, and the pandemic just like ramped that up. Like it was already happening, but it was like it was like throwing a match into gasoline. Like it just lit a fire and got everybody moving in that direction. But then the pandemic kind of ended essentially, right? It didn't fully end, but it phased out with all of the vaccinations. And so as we started to go back into the world, I thought, okay, let's get back to the movies because that's all of us, right? We're all movie people. We want to be in the movies. We want to be in the theater, but that's just not what happened. It did not translate. Like I think the past several years since the pandemic, theater attendance has just steadily gone down. And it's obviously several different factors. One of the factors being inflation in general, like going to the movies is expensive. Even if you don't buy any snacks or treats at the theater, which I almost never do, but I know a lot of people do, a lot of families do. And even without that, if I even took my two older kids, I have four kids, if I take 2 of my kids to a movie with me, like, that's still gonna cost me, like, $50 basically, full price. And so, um, it's just it's just crazy how much inflation has infected it. affected it. And I agree with you, 80s kid. Like, uh, the indie stuff has been getting better and better, right? Like, we have A24 coming out of nowhere, just creating incredible stuff. Blumhouse has been doing it for a while, where you're getting some really unique indie stuff, creative stuff. And so you have all of these indie studios. It's becoming easier and easier for indie filmmakers to make films. 20 years ago, when I was in film school, or not 20 years ago, that really makes me feel really old. I'm not that old. Like 15 years ago, when I started film school, if you wanted to make a film, you basically, the way to do it was either the Kevin Smith way, which was to get like 6 or 7 credit cards and max them all out and make a film, or get into a studio, start working, work as an AD, work as an assistant director or a line, get in there as a production assistant, get a job as a line producer, like somewhere along the way, and grow into the role of director and get a big deal because of your agent. And so, let's see, indie comics and toy companies. Um, Maybe expand a little bit on that, 80s kid. So with right now, with the state of the industry, focus, camera, I'm moving too much. With the state of the industry, the more that the companies and the studios decide, like the Fall Guy, where they're like, this just isn't meeting expectations. We want to cut our losses and bring it to video on demand. What they're basically saying is, they're not gonna do it anymore. That's what they're saying. Like, they're already taking a huge loss on Fall Guy, which I was gonna challenge people, viewers, and so if you're watching this later, this is to you as well. Like, go see Fall Guy if you can, if it's still in theaters. I know it's in a few theaters, around. I don't know how many right now, but I would also encourage you, and this is hard, but I think that we collectively as audiences, if we want theaters to survive all of this, we've got to not buy the video on demand. Like, that is a huge part of it. Like, if people want theaters to survive, you got to resist doing video on demand, which really, like, isn't fun. Like, I don't want to tell people, hey, don't watch Fall Guy on video on demand, but I am. I'm telling you, don't do that, because I'm saying go to the theater and see it, still, if it's available, because the more we buy video on demand stuff, the studios are going to see that as a viable option. And it's like, that's just not what movie going is about. It's an aspect of film. Like, all of us watch movies at home. We love movies at home, but there's something so special about going to the movie theater and experiencing a movie with other people. I think that's the thing. I go and see a lot of movies by myself, which is fine because I have my channel here and I want to bring reviews for all of you and, you know, educate you whether it's worth it, because that's a thing for my channel specifically. It's unique, right? I'm kind of wanting to educate people. Is this movie worth going to the theater for? I want to challenge studios to continue to make good movies. And how you do that is with your wallet. That is how we make decisions in the film industry as audience, is we go to the movie or we don't. And so if there's bad movies, but that's what gets frustrating about this whole Fall Guy situation, right? Is the Fall Guy is a good movie. It's worth going and seeing in theaters. And so it's like, it's so frustrating when a movie comes out and just struggles like the Fall Guy did, because it really dampens my hopes for the industry, because it's like, this was a good movie with a fairly original idea. I know it was based on an old TV series as well, but there's just something unique and fresh about Fall Guy that I loved. Like, it just felt fresh. And that's what we want more of, right? As audiences, we want more fresh movies out. Like, that's why people, I think, are loving A24. Thanks, Kenny. Hey, thanks for hanging out, man. I'm probably only going to stream for a little bit longer. But I just think in general, the state of the industry, like, you see companies like A24, and A24 the reason people love them is because they're bringing fresh ideas to the table. Like Everything Everywhere All at Once, as much as I didn't love that film as much as everybody else, I did like it. I thought it was incredibly well made, incredibly written, just wasn't my style, but still, I loved that it met a new audience of just fresh, exciting new stories. And so I just that's my thing, like, I want fresh stories, and A24 is doing that. A few other studios are doing that, but we're not going to get those stories, honestly, if the industry continues to go the way that it's going. Like, if studios continue to just rush things into video on demand, we're just going to get a bunch of like mediocre, made for Netflix films. And that's the thing about made for Netflix. These companies that make a lot of these films that go to Netflix, like the originals, there's a few originals that are good for streaming. I'm not going to say that they're all not good, but a lot of them are mediocre. And because of that mediocre nature of those films, like, we're not challenging ourselves as audiences. We're not challenging ourselves as storytellers. Like, it's just bad for the industry. Um, like, okay, I get what you're saying, 80s kid. They don't understand totally. Like, that's the thing. They don't understand. That's the thing is all the suits understand, and the studios understand, which we know this, is money. That's all they understand. Money and shareholders and making a profit. And what's really interesting that I would say is you would constantly be making profit if you focused fully on making good movies, but they don't. They rush it. They like want stuff made, they want stuff written, filmed, edited, and pumped out in a year. And that's just not the way movies are made. Like, you can make a movie in a year, but if you're really going to take one of these fan things, like the things that you're mentioning, 80s kid, like if you're going to take these big franchises, Transformers, Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, like all these massive IPs, you've got to do something interesting with it. And that's why I liked Barbie last year, because Barbie was like an IP and they did something interesting with it. Did I love the entire movie? No, but I thought that they did something fresh with it. And that's what's really important is, are we telling fresh, exciting, interesting stories instead of just like recycled garbage? Like, and that's like, and Madam Web is a perfect example of that. Like, where Sony literally is just making garbage movies to hold on to IPs. And that's what these studios care about, because to them, IP equals money. That's what IP equals. Like, IP is intellectual property, for those of you that don't know. And so that is the most like sought after commodity in movie studios today, is intellectual property. Like, because they know that if they get a hold of intellectual property, they can do so much with that intellectual property. They can make merchandise, they can ship it out and do TV shows, they can do spin-off movies, they can do like partnerships with food items, like all that stuff is goes into these decisions that these guys make at the high studio level, and it's moving away from the heart of movies. It's moving away of like, why do we go to the movies? And that's what I was getting at earlier is, we go to the movies to experience things with other people. That's the best, honestly, one of the best that's one of the best things that I think you can do when you go see a movie, um is to go with your friends. Like, go see a movie with your friends, because that is when you enjoy the movies the most. My buddy Landon was in here, and we were talking, like, what I was thinking about, what are some of the movies that I've gone to the theaters and enjoyed the most. I think that's one a huge thing about why the MCU and like phase 1, 2, and 3 of the MCU were so huge, is because people were growing with these characters and they were going and seeing these movies with their friends. And they weren't just great stories, but they were theater experiences with people they cared about, and not just characters on the screen, but the people that were sitting next to them. And so that's a huge part of movies. And when you have the fall guy getting kicked of video on demand, that is a surefire thing for me that's showing we are moving away from a theater experience. And I'm like super scared of that, guys. I love the movie theater. I grew up going to movies. So many of us grew up going to movie theaters. But I think movie theaters are going to start dying off. Like the video on demand world is just the little bit of a doorway to that. And so it's something that is going to be, I mean, it's on my radar as a filmmaker and a storyteller, and we just have to keep an eye on it, and we have to prove with our wallets that we're not going to fall into the tricks that the studios are doing. Um, yes, I mean, Inside Out 2, that's the '80s kid. I was gonna ask, like, some of you guys in the chat, I see a few more people popped in. Welcome. Um, like, what are some movies you guys are excited about this summer? Because it's like that's how we're going to vote. Like this next week, Furiosa is coming out. I really hope it does well, just because it looks really fun and interesting and exciting. And I don't know how it's gonna land yet. And I haven't seen. I try to stay away from a lot of the ratings before I see it, but I just think Furiosa is coming out. In, uh, Inside Out 2 is coming out. I'm really excited about Inside Out 2. I loved Inside Out. I think it's one of the last big Pixar movies that was incredible, like just so good. Despicable Me 4, Transformers 1. Transformers 1's interesting, right? Because it's an animated movie, I believe. And so I don't know a lot about it. I just know that it's kind of a little bit of a prequel, I think, to all the Transformer world. Um, Despicable Me 4 kind of feels a lot like Kung Fu Panda 4 to me. Like, I don't know if I love that because it's almost like that's the studios finding an IP and just bleeding it dry. Like that's what I feel like the studios are doing with Despicable Me right now. I feel like they did that with Kung Fu Panda, which is probably understandable because it's the same studio, same company. Um, and so they know Despicable Me is like one of their cash cows, and the more they make, the more they kick out, the more money they're going to make. And those guys are raking it in on Despicable Me, like those minions and all of the merchandise around that. Like you walk around Walmart and it's like minion merchandise everywhere. Like they are making so much money from that. Oh, it's new continuity. Okay, that's interesting. That makes me more excited for it, I think, than I was before, because I do love Transformers. I liked the OG original Transformers, the first one with Sam Witwicky, and so I liked Shia LaBeouf. Like I liked that movie, and then obviously that became another right IP cash cow that the studio was like, we're just gonna keep churning these out because audiences are going and seeing them. And that's why with my channel, I'm so huge on like, is this movie worthy of your money? Like, is it worthy of going to the theater? Because a lot of the time I feel like I should get I'm not huge on multi-sequel films. Now, I will go see them because I want to review them. Welcome, Rick. Thanks for jumping in. Oh, Bike Riders looks good. I'm interested in Bike Riders. My biggest thing with Bike Riders is like, why did they call it Bike Riders? Like, I feel like there's so many other cool biker names they could have come up with for that movie, but they went with Bike Riders, and I laughed so hard the first time I saw that trailer. I thought it was hilarious that they called it that. But I'm excited about Bike Riders. And so I think I'm also I it's so weird that they named it that. Just such an interesting thing. But I mean, I think that ultimately, like, there's a lot of great movies coming out uh this summer. Like, and I already said like Kinds of Kindness, but that's very indie, right? Like I'm excited about that. Um, I don't know how I feel about Quiet Place Day One. Like, I think it's gonna be good. I like Lapita a lot, and so Am I nervous about the I haven't even heard about the Power Rangers reboot. This is news to me, 80s kid. Is it animated or is it live? I haven't heard anything about Power Rangers. And then, and Kevin Costner's coming out with his big old huge epic, what's it called? Like Horizon or whatever. The Horizon saga. Like, I mean, Dances with Wolves is great, but I don't know if Horizon's gonna do well. I've heard mixed things from Cannes. And so I don't know. There's so many things coming out. Agreed, Rick. You nail on the head for me with that comment. Like I loved Quiet Place. I thought the Quiet Place sequel was just okay, and it's mostly because like Krasinski, I think was just so good. Like he was so good in that movie. In the first one, so him not being around in the second one was hard. But I like Lupita. And so I'm interested just because I like her. I think she's an amazing actress. Um, but I'm really seeing it because I want to see how she interprets the source material and like kind of bring something new. And so we can see how that goes. But that's I mean the Power Rangers reboot, the 2018 Power Rangers was like I feel like there was a couple things that were good about that movie, but overall I think it was pretty bad. And an example of a story. It's an example of a story with that Power Rangers movie of another story that's like it felt like this could have been great, but you guys just didn't take the time to make it a great story, like a great script. Because actually liked all the actors they got too. I thought it brought a lot of great chemistry to the screen, um, and so it just the script was lacking there. Um, Yeah, I agree with you, Rick. Like it'll be interesting with Quiet Place. Like, is it a thriller? Like, is it a suspenseful thriller or is it a true action? Because agreed, we were talking trailers earlier in the stream. It's like there's so much about trailers that are fake. Like they lie to you. Like I that was one of my videos earlier this year. You guys can go check it out if you haven't of my Argyle review. I think my thumbnail I wrote like trailers lie because they do. Like, everyone thought Argyle was gonna be about Henry Cavill, and he's like barely in the movie. It's like they lie to you and I hate that. I hate that trailers have become like marketing bait, like to get people instead of intriguing people and being like, "Hey, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be an awesome movie experience. You should come to the theater and experience this." They do that, but it doesn't fully represent the movie. It's like it's false advertising. It's like I'm surprised people haven't gone. I'm surprised some crazy people haven't gone and sued some of the studios for this stuff because like the trailers just lie to us. They lie and they make it look like they want you because they're trying to trick you to come in and see it. And that's just messed up. Like, why are we allowing this to happen in the industry right now? I hate that they do that. Um, and so you're nervous about Star Wars 80s kit with Filoni. Ooh, okay. I do think Filoni brings some fan service, right? I mean, he loves the material. I trust Filoni though. I do. I trust him overall. I think he does. I think he could bring I think Filoni at least brings some energy to the franchise. Like I think it brings something. I think he just loves the material so much. And so like yeah, I like him. I just think he's great, but I do agree that like sometimes when you're so close to source material, it's really difficult for you to see whether something's good or if it's fan service. Because fan service can be good in certain ways. And a good example of that is like the story was weak, but like fan service was really good was the Mario Bros movie last year. It's like, was the story great? Not really. but that film did nostalgia and fan service so well, like the sound and the music and all the little elements of that film. And so there's a way to do fan service. Like The Rise of Skywalker is how not to do fan service. That film was such a mess with fan service. Like it just felt like they were trying to please everybody, every fan, and it just was a mess. I'm sorry if you guys liked it. I just thought Rise of Skywalker was probably the weakest of the new trilogy. And it was because of fan service. Like they just tried to cater too much to making the fans happy and not leaning into a good story. Um, Yeah, I mean, Rick, I'm there with you, man. You weren't here earlier in the stream, but I avoid trailers as much as I can nowadays, as much as I can. There's a few that I'll check out, but overall, nope, don't see them because I talk a lot on my channel about expectations. I think movies, there's a huge thing about like what am I expecting this movie to be? And I would rather rely on my own expectations of going, "Hey, where am I at?" and being honest with my own expectations than allowing the trailer to like falsely hype me up or falsely like disappoint me and then that not be the movie. And so it's good to kind of set your expectations and figure out, what is good here? Like how do we move forward with seeing a film and being adequately prepared for that film emotionally? I have to keep that in mind. So, um, oh, totally. Yes, I'm right there with you, Rick. Like, I absolutely arrived to the theater. I know now. So I'm a Regal guy, which I don't love that necessarily. I think that there's better theaters in my area, but Regal's the most convenient for me right now with my stage of life with my kids and my career. And so I go to I go to Regal, and I know that Regal trailers are 24. Like the all the trailers are 24 minutes. The trailer block is 24 minutes, sometimes 26. So I have it all timed out so that I know I'm like, okay, I can walk in right at the end where there's no trailers, and I can just enjoy the movie without getting spoiled on all these new trailers. So, um, but uh, but yeah. Any questions from you guys? Any other things? Any thoughts? I'd love to know what else you might be excited about for the summer. Um, let's see, what else do we got here, guys, on the summer slot? I know a lot of people are pumped about Maxine. I haven't seen any of that series, which I know a lot of people love it. I'm just not a horror guy, but I've heard a lot about it. I've heard it's really good overall. Um, I'm like, I'm kind of excited for Twisters. Cinemark, nice. That's great. Oh, it's sad that Regal closed, but I mean, it's understandable. Uh, I like Cinemark. They had Cinemarks when I was around my hometown growing up, and I liked it. What are my favorite animated movies? Oh man, so many, you guys. Like, I mean, I just grew up in the second age. I grew up in what they call like the second age of Disney animation. So it's like Lion King, right? Like Little Mermaid kind of kicked it off and restarted like Black Cauldron. Disney was struggling for a while and they had made some sad movies that just weren't that great. And then they made Little Mermaid and Lion King. And so I love Lion King. I love Aladdin. I'm a huge Studio Ghibli fan. Like, I love Miyazaki. I absolutely love that man. I love his entire body of work. Um, and so I think, I mean, Hercules is great. All those Disney movies in that stretch I love. Like it's hard to even justify. I love Tarzan too. Like that's another thing. Like I love Tarzan. Um 60s is an old Rick. Uh 60s is the new 50s, my friend. I uh I love that resurgence. I think from Studio Ghibli though, from Miyazaki, I think my favorites are Princess Mononoke. That's probably my favorite. Princess Mononoke is my favorite. And I think that I really like Spirited Away. I really like Porco Rosso. Um, I mean, I just love so many. Nausicaa was just in theaters, and I wanted to see it again, and I didn't. So if you haven't seen Studio Ghibli, I mean, there's some super solid stuff. Like, obviously, the big hits, the big heavy hitters are like Spirited Away, um, Princess Mononoke, Castle in the Sky, Howl's Moving Castle. Those are all some of the main ones. My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service. Those are all some of the mainstream ones, and they're all really good, really, really solid movies. Um, but I'm trying to think what else. I really, really loved Into the Spider Verse. I liked the sequel, and I'm excited for the next one. I loved Into the Spider Verse. And so, uh, yeah, I mean, Tarzan, I tell people all the time. So I'm from Florida. I spend a lot of time at Disney. I have some friends and buddies, and we go to Disney quite a bit. I still tell people all the time that I low key think that Tarzan is a top five Disney soundtrack of all time. Of all time, I know that's probably a hot take, but I love it. And so I think. Oh, but nice. Yes, Buzz Lightyear, House of Mouse. That's great. Don Bluth, Disney guy. He just came out with a. Don Bluth just came out with an autobiography, and I haven't read it yet. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. I can look it up. Um, Don Bluth, man, he was so good. Um, I mean, so many of his movies are great. Somewhere Out There because of the Fievel. And so his new book's called Somewhere Out There. I've heard amazing things. I haven't read it yet, but it's definitely on my list. It's definitely on my list to read. Um, what's your favorite Bluth movie? 80s kid. I mean, because he did so many great. I mean, he really did an incredible amount of movies. Like, I just think like American Tail is amazing. I think my favorite Bluth movie though is The Secret of Nim, and it's an autobiography. Don Bluth. It's a book, so it's a book that he wrote that he just had written called Somewhere Out There, and I'm definitely gonna check it out. I think yeah, I think my favorite Don Bluth movie is Secret of Nim. I really love that movie. Um, hey, my dad's here. That's awesome. Hey, Dad. Um, Dad checking in, Mr. Roy Allen. Oh man, all dogs go to heaven. So good. Land Before Time. I mean, I think Land Before Time is one of those movies that like I think that movie was one of the first movies that made me cry like as a kid. Because it's like I mean, all Disney movies they lose parents, right? So Don Bluth carried that over as when he went and made Land Before Time, but movie's just so good, so wholesome, so the animation was so good and the characters were so well written. Like I just that movie's super underrated, Land Before Time. It's such a well-written movie and you wouldn't think that that movie is as deep and emotionally impactful as it is, but it is. I mean, Don Bluth just knew what he was doing. That guy knew what he was doing. He's so good. Um Titan AE is so underrated. I loved Titan AE. I know a lot of people did not. I just think that that film was just super underrated, and I think it was just a little bit ahead of its time. I think some of the stylistic choices that were made in that film, just audiences weren't ready for them, but it was so good. Like I think that they were pushing the boundaries back then, and I appreciate that like immensely. Like a huge part of my job now as a filmmaker, I'm a writer, director, producer. I do a lot of different projects all over the world. I work for a global I work for a global yeah, company, and one of the things that I appreciate most about projects that come along across my desk are innovative projects. Like, I want projects that are gonna push the envelope creatively, that stretch you and make you grow as a creative, as a writer, as a storyteller. And I want it to stretch me stylistically as well. And so I love it when when movies are pushing those boundaries. Like I think that was one of the unique things. Wish was so bad. Honestly, I did not like Wish, but I was just talking with a guy at work this morning about this. But it's like Wish, the script was bad, and it's because they just focused so much on the Easter eggs, and they were trying to do something unique there. Um, but the style was cool. I liked that they were trying something new with style. I thought the songs were well written. Just the story lacked. It just heavily, heavily lacked. Um, and so it just made me sad. But I appreciate when the industry allows people to take risks. And that kind of, leads me to just getting ready. I'm probably going to start wrapping up right now and cut my first stream off. This went great. Super thankful for you, Rick, 80s kid, Kenny, uh, Roy Allen, my dad. Thanks for stopping by. All you guys that came in here, Sammy, and who else was in here? Marley. Thanks, guys, for stopping in. I really appreciate you coming by. And what I want to leave you with here is super important. Please, if you can, go see Fall Guy in theaters if it's still available locally. Yeah, totally, Rick. Thanks so much for coming. Go see Fall Guy. Don't buy the video on demand. And tell all your friends, don't buy the video on demand for Fall Guy. Go see it in theaters and go see Furiosa this week. Go check out Furiosa and you know, uh go with your friends. Don't go alone. Find some friends. I'm going with 4 of my buddies to go see Furiosa. Yes, Fall Guy was so fun. We want more of those guys. We want more Fall Guys. And we are not going to get more Fall Guys if we don't go to the theaters for those movies. We gotta go. That's the only way we can communicate with the studios. And so I'm gonna leave it at that today for the live stream. Is we've gotta go to the theaters and see these movies. We gotta prove the studios. We want these fresh takes. We want these fun, innovative, new movies. And that's how they are going to learn. They're going to learn by us speaking with our wallet, unfortunately, but that is how they learn. And I will leave it at that. Thank you all for coming today. I'm going to sign off for my first live for the Movie Minute, and hopefully we can do this more often. And I will talk to you guys later. Peace out.